Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I have some information to share today on the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, extension of benefits. But first, I want to provide a brief update on economic conditions. Yesterday, the Employment Department released February's snapshot of Oregon's economy. Oregon added 13,900 non-farm jobs in February, and our unemployment rate edged down just a little bit to 6.1% from the 6.2% in January. Even with that very sizable gain of jobs, if we were to continue adding 13,900 jobs every month as we did in February, it would take another 11 months to return to the pre-recession employment levels. After dropping rapidly between May and November in 2020, Oregon's unemployment rate has declined at a slower pace in more recent months. This mirrors the pace of recovery nationwide. Industries disrupted the most by COVID-19 did see the greatest employment gains in February, with leisure and hospitality adding 11,100 jobs. We have more detailed information about the state of our economy, and you can find that at qualityinfo.org. Beyond paying vital safety net benefits to people that are out of work, the Employment Department has been and continues to be committed to helping unemployed workers find new jobs and new careers. We help businesses find qualified employees all around the state. We know that businesses and workers are still facing many struggles as the pandemic continues. We know some businesses are hiring now, but that some people are still facing real barriers to returning to the workforce. People can keep receiving unemployment benefits if they turn down an offer of work because of a COVID-19 related reason. However, if they turn down suitable work without having what the law defines as good cause, they are not eligible to continue receiving benefits. Just a few examples of COVID-19 related reasons are being ill with COVID-19, staying home to care for a family member who's suffering from COVID-19 or is subjected to a mandatory quarantine, or being required to work in conditions that would violate COVID-19 related safety standards. And the full list of COVID-19 related reasons are available on our website. If employers are having work offers turned down or are having newly hired employees not appear for work without there being a COVID-19 related reason, that is something that they should let us know about. That allows us to follow up and ensure that benefits are going to those who meet the legal eligibility requirements, including accepting offers of suitable work. We also appreciate people telling us not just about individual circumstances, but also about possible trends. In concert with our workforce system partners, we can work to try to overcome those trends and help employers find and maintain a robust workforce. For employers who would like to work with the Employment Department to find employees, we recommend they post job listings on www.imatchskills.org. The website has information on how to do that, and our staff follow up with the employer or directly post the job listings. We're providing additional support for employers, such as virtual hiring events and drive-through events with COVID-19 safety precautions in place. One more resource for employers is the WorkShare program, which can be used to recall workers part-time as their businesses recover from the recession. The American Rescue Plan extended the federal payment of those WorkShare benefits through September 4th, 2021, meaning that the ARP pays the entire cost of those unemployment insurance benefits, not the employer. More information can be found either at oregon.gov/employee/businesses/workshare or at oregonworkshare.com. And for people seeking work, we recommend several steps to help them in their job search. They can get registered on imatchskills.org, create a profile to get matched to jobs. Employers and our business services employees actively look through those job profiles for job candidates to help them find possible employment. People can browse for jobs at oregon.gov/employee. You select the quote, find a job under the job seekers section to browse open Oregon jobs. You can also browse for jobs and find more of them at qualityinfo.org. If you go to find a job under the jobs and careers, and there's a robust search engine there. You can also browse labor market, career, training, local area, and employer information. And we encourage people to connect with WorkSource Oregon on LinkedIn, which is another way to find job opportunities, and to contact us for one-on-one support. You can visit our WorkSource Oregon website at worksource.org to find contact information for your region. It has been a year since the economic effects of COVID-19 began impacting Oregonians, and we know that many people are still in very, very difficult situations. They're also dealing with expired claims, with exhausted claims, new federal programs, retroactive changes, new federal guidance. This can all be confusing. We're working to keep the public informed as best we can, and we'll continue to do that. We're constantly updating our website to get accurate information and answers to commonly asked questions. We're sharing updates when we get them on the website, in webinars, in social media, and through emailed updates. And to provide some updates on the recently passed ARP federal legislation, that was signed on March 11th, 2021 by President Biden just under a week ago, and it provides for more benefits to the unemployed. The Continued Assistance Act federal programs expired last week, which means people are claiming and receiving their last Continued Assistance Act benefits this week. We remain focused on getting people all of the benefits they're eligible for as quickly as possible. We've already made changes to our system needed to extend the waiver of the waiting week. And we're also pleased to say that we will soon be paying the additional FPUC $300 weekly payments under the new ARP to people receiving benefits. We anticipate continuing to pay those FPUC benefits next week without any break. For people that are on PUA or PEUC programs, if they still have benefits remaining on their claim, our goal is to have those paying out by the end of next week, the first week of the ARP programs. If someone has used up all of their PUA or PEUC benefits, it will take us additional time to add the newly created ARP benefits to their claim. We're doing everything we can to minimize that additional time. If we're able to start paying these programs sooner and reduce any interruption in receiving benefits, we will certainly do so. It's important that if somebody receives a letter informing them that their claim has exhausted, meaning that they have a zero balance, that they should keep filing their weekly claim every week. They will not lose out on funds and will be paid the benefits they're eligible for, including the additional $300 FPUC weekly benefit. To stay informed of program changes and other information related to the American Rescue Plan, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our weekly email updates in English or Spanish. To do that, when you're at our website, go to Quick Links and click the quote, sign up for email updates option. There are still a huge number of people that are needing assistance, and our workload remains extremely high. We have added staff, and we continue to provide more and more training to those staff, even as we hire more employees. But we know that it's still too difficult for people to get through to us on the phones. The best way to help us get benefits to people as quickly as possible and to talk to the people who do need to speak with us in order to get their benefits is to use the Contact Us form with claim-specific questions and our website for more general information. If people have questions about the new federal legislation, we're asking that they not call us, but instead visit our website, which is unemployment.oregon.gov, which we update almost daily and will continue to update as we have more information about implementing the ARP programs. We'll also be providing more information through our webinars, and our next unemployment webinar is tomorrow, March 18th at 1 p.m. We'll be discussing the new guidance regarding federal benefits legislation and PUA benefit expansions through the recent U.S. Department of Labor rule change. That webinar will have simultaneous interpretation available in Spanish, Vietnamese, Russian, and Cantonese. People can register for the webinar and view all of the past ones at unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. Between March 15th of 2020 and March 16th of this year, we've paid about $8.1 billion in benefits to more than 569,000 people. That represents 12 million weeks of benefits being paid out. I mentioned that we still have an extremely high workload. Last week alone, we paid $143 million to 172,000 people. The benefits we've paid over the course of the past year includes $676 million to just under 103,000 people on PUA benefits. To close, we're very glad to be able to begin paying benefits extended by the American Rescue Plan without delay for most people. Although we're glad that so many Oregonians are continuing to receive their additional weekly benefit, we remain focused on minimizing any disruption some people may see before we are able to fully implement all of the extensions and new aspects of the PUA and PEUC programs. I do want to thank again our employees for their dedication and incredible efforts to implement this new legislation and these new benefits as quickly as possible to get that help into the hands of Oregonians as quickly as we can. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I apologize, I know we were having some technical problems earlier, so I'm not sure if PJ is able to join to call on people in the order that they responded.
Yes,
okay.
It's working now. Thank you, David.
Sure.
So David, did they hear my instructions?
I heard instructions at the beginning. I didn't hear anything after I gave my comments.
Okay, I'll go over it again just to be safe. So now we are opening the lines to members of the media to ask questions. We will call on you in the order you RSVP'd. And remember, if you are joining us by phone, be sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't get your question answered, please email oad_communications@oregon.gov. And we will start with Peter Wong from Pamplin Media.
Hi, David. Thanks. Has the agency managed to reduce the number of cases under adjudication? I know you've gone down to, I forgot what the level was, 6,000 or something like that, and somehow it then got stuck at that level. Anyway, that's the question.
Sure. So we actually have a little more than 6,000 claims that are currently in adjudication. That actually represents a lot of forward progress. Before we were talking about the claims that we knew had an issue that needed adjudication. As soon as we identify that a claim does need to go through that full adjudication process, we're assigning it out, and we are getting through those much more rapidly than we were before. Most of those are being resolved within 4 to 6 weeks. Which is much shorter than before. Many of those are being resolved even quicker than that. The reason that we actually have more issues that we are actively adjudicating right now is because we have been able to better identify all of the claims that needed any work done and to work through much more quickly, either resolving those or more quickly identifying which ones need to have adjudication done. So we will always have some claims that need adjudication. And when we have, I mentioned over 170,000 people that were paid benefits last week, it will remain a pretty high number of claims that need adjudication. And the real secret of what we need to do is to make sure that we're resolving those quickly. And we are getting through those much more quickly. The number of claims that we adjudicate each more week now is at a record pace for the agency's history as far back as we're able to see our records.
All right. In terms of newly filed claims, I know you've gotten those, at least in previous sessions, you've gotten those processing times down to a few days or very quickly anyway. Are we seeing a decline in new claims, or is that cyclical? Can you characterize that?
It is cyclical, and the cycle has certainly been disrupted by the pandemic. So we're now in what is normally our slowest season. So if we're not in a recession, we have a regular seasonal workload that goes up quite a bit starting late in the year. And it starts to taper off in February of each year. So by now we would be into a slower time period. We're seeing a little bit of that now, but probably the bigger impact is just the overall economic conditions. So as those continue to improve, we're seeing both fewer new claims being filed, and frankly, a large percentage of the people that are getting benefits, it's not as many new claims, it's people that are still unemployed after using up their initial claim and are getting benefits under one of the extension programs. That number is still very high by historical standards. That's at 172,000 people that actually received payments last week. That's incredibly high, but we are seeing that start to go down as we get farther into the recovery and into the normal, better employment time of the year.
Okay, that answers what I need. Thanks.
And next up is Tom Cusack, Oregon Housing Blog. Tom Cusack, Oregon Housing Blog. Okay, Tom, we'll try again. Next up is Dick Hughes with the Hughesisms.
Thank you very much for doing these, and I also want to thank PJ for providing some very helpful information between these media availabilities. One of the things that I keep hearing from people is one of the ongoing worries they have, and that is, should any people receiving benefits worry that they're going to suddenly be told that, well, they weren't eligible after all, and they have to repay X amount of money? And if so, do you have any sense of how many people this might apply to? I realize this is a very broad question, but again, it's something I've heard.
Sure, and I certainly understand people are really anxious. They've needed the benefits, and that would be a huge concern. I don't have hard numbers to give you, but I can give some general context. We are required to look into issues on an ongoing basis regarding claims, and normally we do find information after benefits have been paid that raise a question about whether the person was eligible or not. So we're required to look at that, and if we determine that they're not eligible, to tell them. I would tell people that they don't need to worry about that. I know that many still will, but the process that we go through is, if we think that someone received benefits they weren't eligible for, we give them a formal decision that explains how much they received that we think they weren't eligible for. And importantly, it gives them a chance to challenge that decision if they think that we made an incorrect conclusion. So the decision itself comes with instructions on how to appeal that if they wish to do that. And it goes to an independent administrative law judge. We do our very best to make accurate decisions, but that's an important safety step for people to have a way to say if they think we made a mistake. And frequently people also then provide additional information that may show that they were actually entitled to the benefits. If it turns out that someone really did get benefits where they didn't meet the legal requirements, we again are legally required to tell them about that. And it is an overpayment of benefits. If it wasn't caused by anything that they didn't hide any information from us, they didn't give us any information that turned out to be inaccurate, then although it's an overpayment, currently the only way that we collect that is by offsetting it from future unemployment insurance benefits. And during this recession, we have basically not been offsetting. We have statutory authority to not offset in some circumstances, and wherever we have that flexibility, we haven't been doing that in order to allow people during this really deep recession to have the benefits that they need. So it will be an impact. We do everything that we can to mitigate the impact. And if it is an overpayment that someone owes and they need to pay it back, by far our preferred option and what we try to do is to work with them to reach some kind of payment plan that they're able to meet without it causing any undue hardship on them.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And on a semi-related note, you mentioned the increased hiring continues, and is that because there's a churn in employees, or are you continuing to expand your workforce? And if so, are there particular areas where you're focusing on hiring more employees?
It's a good question. It's a mix. We have some natural attrition as the economy improves. It's kind of normal for some of our employees, particularly ones that we hired for temporary assistance during a recession to find other jobs. So we're certainly seeing some of that. We're also seeing a lot of people that are doing really well in their positions and they're able to promote into other positions. So for instance, there are some typical career paths where people may start out providing frontline customer service, answering some of the more straightforward questions, and then maybe they gain the skills and are a good match to do adjudication work or some of our fraud investigation. So as they promote, that creates other vacancies that we backfill behind. And then certainly we've been constantly evaluating what our staffing levels need to be. And each time there's a change in federal legislation that changes programs and make benefits available for longer, that changes how much work we project we will have. So we've been adjusting our staff levels to that. So we are hiring additional people for answering the phones, processing claims, doing adjudication, and that fraud investigation, and a lot of other types of work as well.
Thank you.
Next up is Mike Bragaway with the Oregonian.
Hey, David. This came up last week too, but I wanted to pursue it again. Is there a risk that if the federal government set up some kind of national unemployment benefits technology, that Oregon's system could end up, that we're about to start building here now, could end up being redundant and maybe not used as a result of a national federal system emerging?
I think there's some risk because we don't know exactly what the plans are. I think it's a really small risk. And one, I think the much bigger risk would be for us to not proceed as quickly as we have been and as quickly as we can to modernize our systems. There is discussions, but no legislation enacted yet about there being a national technology support or a solution for unemployment insurance. It's not clear what that would be. And most of the discussions that I've heard have been not around it being a full, complete system that would handle all of the work for all of the states and kind of requiring states to use it, but rather being a centralized system for some of the very common pieces that are the same across all of the states that states could opt to use. So I think the risk of us ending up with something that's not needed is very low, and certainly much lower than the risk of us not proceeding with modernization. There's probably a higher risk, but one that we'll be watching very closely, that if there is some kind of centralized national technology solution, that it might just change what some of the requirements are as we build our system to take advantage of the national capacity, while still making sure that we can do all of the Oregon specific work as we need to.
Good, thank you. And just to follow up real quick on modernization, then where are you in the contract negotiations? Is there a timeline that you can give us even broadly of when you'd be in a position to sign a contract?
I can give you the non-specific timeline answer that we are getting much closer. We've had very detailed discussions, and I've talked before about why it's so important that we get this part of the process right. This really is the roadmap to what we're going to have at the end and make sure that we're adequately protecting the money and the interests of Oregonians. We are working with our lawyers right now, and we're moving it through as quickly as we can. We have really strong modernization leadership that's been guiding that, and we expect that we will be in kind of the final review process where everybody has their lawyers looking at it and making sure that there's not any gaps for that final review within the next couple of weeks. And I know that the timeline has been one that's been hard to be specific. There are a whole lot of details that we have to work out, and we've been really cautious to make sure that we end up with a good contract that meets our needs.
Good, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Kate Davidson with OPB. Kate Davidson, OPB. Okay, so we'll come back right now. Bill Poehler, Statesman Journal.
Yeah, hey David. So the early on in the pandemic, people were getting letters from the employment department, either accepting or that their claims have been accepted or denied, and on a lot of them, there were as their ID were social security numbers, and I'm wondering if the department is still doing that, and if you've seen any problems from that.
So there are some documents where we're required to use social security numbers. Wherever we can, we instead use a customer identification number, which is distinct, and we do that for additional security measures. We're very aware of all of the risks of identity theft, and frankly, we've talked about the fraud issues several times, and because of identity theft that's been done from other sources of data, that's certainly causing a big problem for our systems. Oregon has used that separate customer identification number for quite a number of years, specifically to help try to preserve confidentiality. So where we can, we're using that customer identification number instead of the social security number.
Okay. I've seen some people posting like and they'll blank out some things on their claims and they'll post them online, like they post them to Facebook. Are there things that does that seem like a security concern to you when people do that?
We are worried about that. We know that some people post things on Facebook, blurring pieces out or redacting them. Sometimes they don't do that, and it might have a fair amount of confidential information, like that customer identification number, which we really don't want people sharing with each other. So we are encouraging everyone to really be cautious with personal information. That's something that I think all of us have to deal with in this day and age, unfortunately, and we are kind of constantly pointing people to resources. The Federal Trade Commission and the Oregon Department of Justice has some information on how to protect yourself against identity theft, including just not after it's been stolen, but some good preventative things, including not sharing that kind of confidential information when you don't have to.
Okay, thanks, David.
Next up is Lindsay Nadrich with Coin.
Hi, David. So I've been hearing a lot of confusion from people about what they need to do to make sure they continue to receive benefits. So in particular, some people are saying, they were on regular unemployment. It's been a year, their claim is expired, but they still have benefits available on PEUC. Should they file a new claim or continue to file on their existing PEUC claim? They said they're getting conflicting information on social media, on the Oregon Employment Department page and website, and need clarification. So what should people do?
The most important thing for people to do is to check our website where we're posting information, because unfortunately there are a lot of different situations. So even where you gave a pretty specific situation of someone that was on regular unemployment, had exhausted their claim, but may have PEUC available, not all of those people are necessarily in the same situation in terms of what they need to do. So the one uniform thing that we can share is if you do have benefits remaining on your claim and it hasn't expired, keep filing those weekly claims. We're posting more information on our main website, trying to get as clear as we can to all the different specific situations that people may be in, when they need to file a new claim and when they do not. For people on PUA, they typically do not need to file a new claim just because they've reached the 1 year mark or because the amount of benefits that they have has been exhausted. But we can't give one answer that fits all the circumstances, because there just are so many different scenarios now as people move between claims and benefit programs get extended. So we have some information on our website. We're refreshing that as these new programs get implemented and as we get the additional guidance about how some of these extensions will work with the old programs.
Yeah, so the woman I talked to said she checked the website and what she needs is not up there. So she's tried to call, says it takes like 6 hours to get through to anybody. So like, I don't know, can you answer more specifically for somebody who has expired, they've exhausted their regular unemployment benefits, but their claim is still showing benefits available for PEUC? Can you say what she should do?
So there's not necessarily one uniform answer, because there are other variables there. So that's something that I don't want to give one answer here that may work for most people, but not for everyone. I mentioned we are working on updating that information on the website to address more specific situations. The best thing that we can advise is to send that contact us form and to keep checking the website as we update the information. This, for some of these scenarios, especially with us transitioning from the Continued Assistance Act to the new ARP programs, we have not received most of the federal guidance yet. And around the PEUC program specifically is probably the most complex, where sometimes people have options about what they do and which program they're on.
Sorry, so how do I reassure people then that they're not missing out on benefits? Because they, they want to, if they have to file a new claim, they want to file that now so it's in the system. Should they keep filing on their existing claim? I mean, I don't know, like, when will you know? Because people are obviously panicking because they don't want to miss out, and they know how long it can take, so they want to make sure they're doing the right thing.
So in terms of the best thing to do, if they can still keep filing their weekly claims, they should do that. We know for some situations, and we have that information up, when people should file a new claim and when they shouldn't. And if it is a situation where they've been filing weekly claims and they can't get through, then there is backdating available. And the contact us form will show that they were reaching out, and that will help us with any backdating if there are issues. But again, for some of these situations, particularly around the PEUC program, where there are different options depending on how much the person's weekly benefit amount would be under PEUC or under a potential new claim, there's not just one answer that we can give that would fit the details that you were able to provide on that particular situation.
Okay, thanks.
Next up is Kevin McNamara with KTVL. Kevin McNamara. Okay, next up is Keaton Thomas, KATU.
Hi, David. Good to talk to you. Sort of following up to what Lindsay was asking you about. I guess my question is just further clarity. Maybe I missed it earlier, but which folks have a chance of seeing some sort of disruption in claims as you guys try and work towards implementing the new federal programs? Is it just PUA and PEUC, if I recall correctly, or can you just kind of describe who's at risk of losing benefits, or at least for maybe a week or two?
Sure. So for people that are on regular unemployment that still had weeks remaining, there's no disruption. They're not really involved with these federal programs. For people that are on PUA or PEUC who hadn't used up all of their benefits, so they still had some benefits remaining on those programs, our goal is to have those benefits being paid out by the end of next week. So the first week that they are legally able to be paid. For people that were running out of their PUA or PEUC benefits, it will take some additional time there for us to add the additional weeks of benefits into their claim. And those are the people that are at risk, and that we're really focused on minimizing how many people have that risk and how long that delay might be for anybody who does see a delay.
And then to follow up then, is that risk because you are going to pay people with remaining weeks with those, you're going to pay people who have remaining weeks with the weeks that are remaining on their claim, and then the other folks who exhausted or expired their claims they have to start over under the new program? I guess I don't understand the distinction.
Sure, there are multiple changes that we have to make. So whenever there's an extension like this, we have to go into the systems to extend the time period that people can receive benefits under. And that is a quicker programming change for us to implement. So if somebody still had some PUA benefits available, but they weren't going to be able to receive them after the Continued Assistance Act program because the time period was met, it was after March 13th, we anticipate being able to change that time period by the end of next week. So those people can just keep claiming benefits. It's both a more complicated programming undertaking, and in some areas, there has been some surprising and very complex to implement coding and manual work around adding the additional weeks of benefits that are also available under the extensions. So you're exactly right. For the people that had benefits remaining, essentially we're able to let them keep using those prior weeks while we add the additional weeks in. For people who didn't have any benefits remaining, it is more complicated and takes more time for us to add those additional benefits to their claim.
Okay, and then just one final follow-up to what you mentioned earlier is the $300. Are you going to be able? You say you're going to be able to start paying that next week, hopefully.
Correct. We anticipate there being no break. So people who are receiving any benefits next week should just continue receiving that $300 supplemental weekly benefit.